Hi, this is Dr. Campbell, and I wanted to talk about why discrimination is difficult for schools like Boston Latin. In a recent article, a federal probe has found that Boston Latin discriminated against historically underserved students. Historically underserved students have been plagued by the atrocities associated with racism since the inception of school segregation in the United States. The characteristics associated with a dysfunctional organization make it difficult for schools like Boston Latin to eliminate discrimination against historically underserved students. Now, I was reading this article that was titled, Federal Probe Finds Discrimination at Boston Latin. And essentially, they found out that this is a culture that was fueling racism, and they weren't answering students' complaints about racism. And so what I think people, and especially administrators and teachers, what they have to really start to look at is the characteristics associated with a dysfunctional organization if they're going to begin to solve the problem. Now, there are 5 levels of a dysfunctional organization. It begins with defensive routines. The second level is skilled incompetence. The third level is defensive routines. The fourth level is fancy footwork. And the fifth level is organizational malaise. And so I want to kind of walk you through exactly what happened in this incident. Now, like I said, the first level is defensive routine. And that's where people want to protect themselves from threats, from embarrassment, or any type of harm coming to them. And one of the things that happened when the complaint was filed was that the Boston Latin administration, they were attempting to protect a personal connection that they had with one of the students. So that is the defensive routine, the defensive mechanism. And so now what happens is the second level is skilled incompetence. And what people do is they try to develop ways in order to protect themselves. And so one example I can think of, as a former administrator, when when they wanted to protect certain students who were considered the good students, they may not get the same discipline as other students. Now, that's really a defensive routine, but the process that leads to that is skilled incompetence. And this is the same thing that's been happening at Boston Latin. So the Boston administration automatically, once they developed that skilled incompetence, they decided to protect the student that they had their personal connection with. And they stepped into fancy footwork when they, instead of responding to the parents' complaint, they sent it over to central office. And they had somebody else who wasn't even an employee to contact the parents. So that's the fourth level, fancy footwork. And then there's organizational malaise. Now, what happened was they decided not to properly investigate the incident for whatever reason. And they decided to shift the blame someplace else. These are the 5 levels that are destroying schools when they go through these 5 levels. And so what we do is, we find ways that instead of administrators and teachers becoming defensive, we could have found ways so that they wouldn't have to exhibit those characteristics of the defensive routine. And this is why I know it's important to promote positive relationships amongst all students. Because if you're treating them all the same, then you have no reason to be defensive and therefore escalating into the other levels. This is Dr. Campbell. You can read about this article, and I kind of just paraphrased today, but you can read about this article on my blog at www.positiveracialrelationships.com. Hey, if you want to talk about it, you can always call me on my direct line, 856-566-3267. Have a great day, and thank you. very much.
Yeah. Be sure to check out positiveracialrelationships.com. Check it. Look, pull your pencils out, class is in session. Let's focus on loving our neighbor without a question. Visit positiveracialrelationships.com. Leading classrooms together like a marriage bond. Kick racism out, that ain't what life's about. For more information, check the website out. Yeah.